Well, congratulations on making it to this part of the interview process. Hopefully, your spouse explained to you that the way that we try to do our interviews is less of like us trying to get as many people here as possible and more about trying to make sure we got the right fit with the team that we currently have in place. We're also trying to figure out if this is the right fit for you guys. The problem is that people have heard a lot of stories about the adventure of going into sales, and yet people still do it, and a lot of people love it. A lot of people do not have great experiences with it, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people tend to be scared about getting into sales. I've been doing this job since 2014, and when I came in, just like everybody else, me and my spouse were quite worried about, gosh, are we going to make money? Right. That seems like it is the biggest obstacle at this moment of like, man, this sounds really good. This is a phenomenal product. It really helps people. Everybody I've talked to seems like they're really like good people, genuinely that care about each other and want what's best for the people around them. Like the culture seems awesome, but commission-based only sells. How is this going to work? Right? Like, are we going to be able to make money? Are we going to be able to pay our bills? These are all fears that like I feel like almost everybody has. Now, the goal of this video is not to try to convince you that this is the way for you to go. The goal of this video is to try to just let you see how good we are at making sure that all of our agents make a paycheck more often than any other team out there, and just really, really at a high level for sales in general. So I'm trying to think of like the best way to start, but let's just dive into it. Okay. So let me tell you guys a little statistic. And this is kind of gonna be just like a lot of numbers, but right now, Globe Life Family Heritage wide, there's this thing that's called an average submit ratio, which is basically how big is your team versus how many people produce business in that given week. Easy numbers. Let's just say that you have a team of 100 people, and let's say that 90 of them protect at least one family, make a paycheck that week. That means that you have a 90% submit ratio. Okay. Get this, the national average submit ratio nationwide is 46%. Okay, that's nationwide. Our team, I'm embarrassed to say it, last year was our lowest year that we've ever had, and we had a 77.5% submit ratio last year. And we're so embarrassed about that because the year before that, we were at an 88.8% submit ratio. Now, before you're like, oh, 88, well, that means that 20%, give or take, we're making a paycheck on any given week. There's a lot of reasons why somebody may not make a paycheck. Maybe they were just on vacation. Okay. Some people still make a paycheck when they're on vacation. Some people, maybe they got sick, right? Doesn't matter what job you have, unless you got like a lot of PTO. Most people, if they're not working because they're on vacation or sick, they just don't go really get that as big of a paycheck as if they're working doing that job. Uh, Maybe like kids were in school. Every once in a while, it does happen. Something's off in your skills, your habits, your attitude, and it tends to and it doesn't happen. But that being said, 88, 77%, that is almost, either way, that's pretty much double the national average of 46%. So let's talk about that and like how we get our team to do that versus the national average. Now, you've probably heard many different sales pitches where people say like, hey, if you come here, we're going to teach you how to make money. Um, I decided to start tracking it. So when I started this job, I went from being, growing up in construction and ranching, never really doing any sales except for maybe one job in the mall, and then going being a biologist, and then here. And I had a below average start, but when I came in here, the person that was training me, he gave me a checklist, and he's like, "Here's 13 things." Literally told me, Devin, if you do these things every single week, you're going to become a top producer in the nation. You're going to get paid like a top producer in the nation, and you're going to build compounding generational renewal income. And I was like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. And I'm a science branded person. I like the idea of just like having check marks of this is exactly what I have to do. So I took that checklist, and every single week I did this checklist. lo and behold, was the number one producer in our agency for 3 years in a row, top producer every year I've been here, except for like one or two. And on those years, I've led a top producing team. So I've kind of lived and died by this checklist. But then what ended up happening is I started making a bet with the team. And I started telling everybody, like, if you can, I told people when I was training the same thing, you get 100% on this checklist, you're going to be a top producer. But then I made a bet with people and I told them, like, look, if you can just do 80% of the checklist that I tell you to do, you're at least going to get a paycheck every single week. And again, if you're protecting a family every single week, your renewals are going to grow every single month. So check this out. I told this to people for a long time, and then I decided to start proving it. So let me do this. I'm going to share my screen here. So in 2022, quarter one, I created this check. I changed up this checklist. I called it the critical success metrics checklist. Great name, right? But called the critical success metrics. And we started tracking who got over a B, which basically means, did you get 80% of the check marks? We have 13 check marks. Did you get at least 11 of them? Just so you know how to read this, if you get a 0, it means you did not do what we told you to do with an 80% proficiency or better. If you get 100, it means that you did do what we told you to do with an 80% proficiency or better. And then down here, we tracked whether or not you submitted business. Now, we did not track on here whether or not you sold, like this agent sold one policy and made $300, or if they sold 10 policies and made $3,000 that week, right? We just tracked, did you make a paycheck? Again, if you get a 0, it means that you did not get a paycheck. If you get 100, it means that you did, right? It's a binary code plus or minus system, right? This was our first quarter ever tracking this. So basically, we just have a Monday meeting. Everybody, we call it just an accountability meeting, and everybody goes through like, yep, I did what I said I was going to do. I got on this checklist, and I got either family protected or I did not. So a really good example is this kid, Tony, 20 years old, no sales experience, did roofing before this. He came in, and as you can see here, for his first 9 weeks, he came in and he did what I told him to do with an 80% proficiency or better. Or at least that's what he told me. And then if you look at his first 9 weeks, he made a paycheck every single week for those first 9 weeks, except this weird week on week 7, right? Week 7, claimed to do the right activities. Week 7, he did not make a paycheck. However, what you don't see on here is that week 8 was the best week of his career. He over doubled any week that he had up to that point on that week. So I believe that he did the right activities, because even though that may not have paid off when he would have liked it to, it paid off doubly the very next week. Another example is this girl, Amber, no sales experience. You can see like she went on vacation for 3 weeks. Well, she just didn't get paid for 3 weeks. Doesn't matter if you're working at Subway, right? Like if you don't go to work, you just don't get paid. But then every single week after that, it's just 1-to-1 correlation. If she zeroed out, it's like, well, it's because you just didn't go to work or you didn't do the things we told you to do. But if you did get on the board, it's because you did the right activities. Now, on the opposite end, this goes from vet to newbie. There's this agent, his name was Dustin Gibson. By the time that we started tracking this guy had already been a top producer in the company for going on 4 years, 3 years in a row, going on 4 years at this point. And all of a sudden, like you see this quarter where this agent, who's an experienced agent, is just not doing the activities that we recommend people do. And people are like, well, why was that going on? Well, what you don't know is that, so he lived in Montana, he was moving down to Texas, he was selling a house, doing all the repairs and doing all the things you got to do to sell a house, buying a new house, moving his animals, moving his family across the nation, right? So it's really hard to go out and do all the critical metrics that I recommend that you do. But he was very talented, and he had been a top producer for 3 years previously at this point, and he still got on the board and made paycheck almost every single week that entire quarter. So basically what we're showing you here is that you can make money not doing this my way, but it's very uncommon for you to do this our way and not make money. Hopefully that makes sense. And then when we decided to track this, even though the numbers don't line up perfectly, you can see a correlation between when agents got that checklist accomplished and whether or not agents made a paycheck. And this was our very first time ever tracking it. And we ended that quarter with an 80.4% submit ratio. Again, the national average is 46%. So yeah, pretty much double the national average of doing this. And we've pretty much gotten better at this as we go. Let me show you another quarter, our best quarter. We brought in another thing. So basically, we brought in this concept of this thing called controllable commitments that we start tracking as well. So basically, now on these accountability meetings, we all say, okay, here's one thing that's 100% in my control that I'm going to do that's going to move my business forward. Then we track who got on that checklist, and then we track who submitted business. This was our best quarter that we ever had, or so far. We're always trying to beat this now, but it's quarter 3 of 2022. And just so you know, quarter 3 is always goofy, right? Most of our agents have families. Those families have kids that are out of school. So quarter 3, when you got the 4th of July and you got all these camping trips and you got family reunions, and like all the crazy camps that you got to go pick kids up from, it can be a little bit difficult to go do all the things that I recommend that agents do with an 80% proficiency or better. However, we do also then track those controllable commitments, which keeps that submit ratio nice and high. Like I said, you can see that there's a week right here where almost nobody, like if I remember right, Christmas, or not Christmas, wow. The 4th of July, that year was on a Wednesday, so right in the middle of the week. So a lot of people had vacation planned the week after, like the rest of the week after that. You can see, like I said, a lot of people are on vacation during these times. But gosh, we only had 1 week that entire quarter that was below an 85% submit ratio, and that was an 84.6, right? We got 100, 88, 88, 100, 88. We finished that quarter at a 93.5% submit ratio. So basically, like, we're just getting better at making sure that people are able to make a paycheck every single week, and we take that risk out of sales. Basically, like, it's just like, if you do these things, you will get these results. So I'm going to give away the secrets. I'm going to show you guys exactly what we expect all of our agents to do. Now, as the spouse of somebody that's looking at becoming one of our agents, there's 2 things that you should do when you look at this. One, you should look at this checklist and say, can my spouse do those things? Can I encourage my spouse to do these things? Because this will ultimately lead my spouse to be making a good living, doing something very important with awesome people. But if you start looking at this list and you're thinking to yourself like, my spouse doesn't do very well at that, they don't do very well at this, they definitely don't do that, it's a good idea for you to tell them this might not be the best place for you. But here's the secrets, right? This is exactly what we expect all of our agents to do. And this is mine. So every single week I fill out this checklist, I send it to the whole team. I hold myself accountable to the same standard as everybody else because it hasn't not worked yet in 10 years. So the first thing that all of our agents do is they fill out a weekly game plan, right? So they basically look at their week and they say, okay, I got a kids sporting event Thursday at 3 o'clock, so I'm gonna have to get off early. But I'm going to make up some hours on Tuesday. I'm going to work a little bit late, right? I'm making a plan where I'm going to be able to make sure that I can accomplish what I need to be successful, right? And then I'm going to spend some time filling out this checklist to review my previous week so that I can learn what I can do better to focus on for the upcoming week. And then you submit that to your team leads by Sunday night. Work every day by goal period using a goal card and report your stats. Now that does 2 things. When you report your stats at night, it lets the trainers and the people up like look at your numbers and say, I see you hitting this metric, but I don't see you hitting that one. That tells me we gotta work on X part of your sales process, right? It's a lot like sports, right? When you're looking at just different things, like football, you're like, okay, I see you hitting this metric, but not this one. That tells me we got to work on X part of our process. It does the same thing for us. But even cooler than that is that once we get enough data on you, we can use your past to predict your future. And we can create what's called a goal card, which is basically like, how do I want to explain this? So I have one agent that came to me and was like, hey, Devin, I want to make $100,000 this year. Okay. So we took how much they make per sell and how many demos they have to do to get a sell and how many contacts they have to do to get a demo and how many hours that takes. And we break all those numbers down, we reverse engineer them, and we figured out all this agent has to do is average 23.5 hours a week, which is ridiculously easy, and also get one demo every 2 hours during that time. Now, we then were like, okay, but you're planning on taking this vacation out. So if you're going to get a 0 week on this certain week, we're going to have to bump all the numbers up the rest of the time, right? So we kind of help figure this out to make sure that we're, we got Christmas, we got Thanksgiving. We definitely want you to get your family time in. So we definitely find a way to make it work. But yeah, for all purposes, that agent's well ahead of schedule because they have done more than an average of 23 hours a week because we don't recommend that low of work habits. Read something positive every single day. We try to encourage like motivational in the morning, technical at night. That way you're constantly getting better and improving. Listen to our sales training audios. We have a ridiculous amount of audio programs where the very best in our business have broken down each part of our sales process. And when we encourage people to listen to one of those every single day, so you're constantly getting better and better and better. Hit 25 demos a week and 40 hours a week, which comes down to about 8 to 10 hours a day and getting 5 to 6 demos every single day. We have this thing that's called a 2 out of 3 day, which is as long as somebody gets a family protected, 6 demos, and 8+ hours, that's 3 factors, 2 of which are in your control. 1 requires somebody else to take action. But all of our agents, we tell them like, hey, talk to your spouse and tell them, do not let me in the door. Don't let me come home until I get at least 2 of those 3 things, right? And just the law of large numbers, we've just seen it happen so many times that as long as an agent goes out, gets a 2 out of 3 day, they're going to create success in their life and in this business. And that breaks down to 25 demos in a week, 40+ hours in a week. Be in contact with your trainer every single day, right? And I always tell agents, like, if you're not calling me or your trainer 3 times a day, we just assume you're not out working. If you're out there, you should have questions. You should be contacting your trainer. You should be asking for help, and we will be helping you. We will be holding your hand, teaching you a sales talk that works ridiculously well to get this product in people's hands. Did you protect at least one family? Now, this is one thing that's not in your control, but it's within your influence if you're doing these other things. Positive self-talk throughout the day, plug in at least 3 of the 5 morning meetings. We have more meetings every single day. A lot of those are motivational, but a lot of those are technical. Again, we're just teaching the techniques on how to sell this product better and better and how to get in front of as many people as humanly possible. So that way you can, again, make more sales. Report your stats every single day. I already hit on that one. It looks like that's a little redundant there. And then did you hit the controllable commitment that you made to the team? Last week, I told the whole team that I was going to go up to Idaho and work with one of the sub teams in Idaho, right? So did you at least do that one thing? And then you don't have to worry about this one until you've been here for 13 weeks. So you don't really need to worry about that. And then there's a bonus one of, did you work out or meditate 4 times a week? We just found there's a high correlation between top producers and people that take that time for themselves. So even though like this one's one of those where like it doesn't count against you if you miss it, but it counts for you if you hit it. So you get this little bonus one. And then, like I said, as long as you can get, well, this is for experienced agents. So a new agent, as long as you're getting 11 out of 13 of those controllable metrics, you're going to find success, right? Like, let me show you this. So in 2022, we had a lot of agents become top producers, and they took them all to, they always take all the top producing agents, the top 10% of the nation. They take them on really cool trips, incentive trips, and things like that. And we had quite a few winners this year, but check this out. So if I scoot out, you can see myself, I'm in here. I'm getting that commitment. Obviously, I'm human, so I missed it one time there the week of the 4th of July. But hitting that commitment most weeks, hitting that checklist 2 out of 13 weeks for that quarter, getting on the board every single week. Like I said, top producer almost every single year. In the years I've not been a top producer, I've trained many other top producers. Anna, this girl at this time, she was a single mom. She had a hard time, especially in Q3, being a single mom and kids being out of school, putting in the 40 hours, the 25 demos, and hitting like that checklist all those times. But she got her commitment almost every week but one. Got on the board every single week. I want to say that she was 92nd in the nation that year. Lori Lynn, no sales experience, worked out of college for 23 years, been a top producer for the last 4 out of 5 years, Last year was the number one producer on the team and the number one producer in the state of Wyoming. And same thing, like getting that commitment every single week, missing that checklist 3 out of 13 weeks, but still getting on the board every single week. Sean Sweeney, ex-military, no sales experience, came in, same thing, right? He was 69th in the nation that year. 67th in the nation that year. But same thing, he got 1 week where he didn't get that checklist, or sorry, where he didn't his commitment. 2 weeks without the checklist, getting on the board every single week. John Devine worked with this guy for 8 years. He's a market director currently. One of the best agents in family heritage right now. And same thing, like usually getting that commitment, usually on that checklist, getting on the board every single week. Michael Brown, been a top producing agent 5 out of 6 years, the number one agent 2 years in a row back in 2022 and 2023. Same thing, like that guy's getting his commitments, getting that checklist, getting on the board every single week. There's that Dustin Gibson guy again, right? So it's just one of those things where it's like we know that we do it if as long as we're focusing on the work habits and improving those skills, the results just tend to follow. So that hopefully with that explanation, it's just one of those things to just remember, like there is no guarantees in anything. I mean, right now it's 2025 and everybody that had government jobs thought that those were going to be really secure. And right now they are not. So this is more secure than that at that point. But like I said, if you're worried about the money part of it and like, okay, sounds really good, but are we going to be able to keep a good income for the family? The answer is yes. It's going to take those kind of work habits and everything that's done on that checklist. And if you can do that week in, week out, I mean, obviously everybody's human. You saw in there that some people weren't able to accomplish it all the time, but as long as the majority of the weeks you're accomplishing those things, good things are just going to happen. So I really hope that this helps explain helps explain what it takes to be successful and helps take away some of that fear, some of that side of it that makes people feel like that this may not be something that they can handle. If you can do all those check marks, you're going to be a top producer. You can get paid like a top producer. The world's going to be your oyster, so to speak. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But yeah, aside from that, I hope that it works out well for y'all.